Well, tonight, Lindsay McConnell is taking a deeper look at the campus culture and how it failed hundreds of athletes.
Well, Brian and Marilee, failure is a word that many have used when describing this case. MSU's leaders admitted to failing the survivors. The survivors say coaches and trainers failed to report Nassar years ago. It's all part of a bigger cultural issue surrounding sexual assault, especially on college campuses. And I've spent the last few weeks examining where we go from here.
I would say it's shocking to see the degree of institutional collapse, and I don't say those words lightly.
Joanne Gerstner is an award-winning sports journalist. Her work's been featured by the New York Times, ESPN, and U.S. Olympic Committee.
A lot of people had to allegedly do things not the right way for us to get to where we were.
She currently teaches at Michigan State as the sports journalist in residence. Despite her pride in the university, she's not shying away from recognizing changes must come from this.
When you hear woman after woman,
I've told counselors your name in hopes that they would report you.
Girl after girl in that court say, I told somebody.
The investigation done by MSU was brief and sloppy, and it left me feeling disposable and worthless.
And nobody listened. You just want to cry.
I told Tim about it, and he said, oh no, that couldn't have happened. I've known Larry for years.
You want to cry for them, because that's not right.
To Kathy Klages, I am so disgusted by you. Women who came up to you in 1997 and you told them that they would have consequences for speaking out about Larry.
They tell you, say something, we'll help you. Maybe not.
Larry Nassar did not arise in isolation. Rather, we saw the worst sexual assault scandal in history unfold because a predator was left in power for decades. Despite warning signs, despite red flags, despite direct reports of assault.
Nassar's victims, now calling themselves an army of survivors, have been the loudest about questioning how we got here. Gerstner says everyone must be willing to examine the culture we're surrounded by, especially when it comes to prioritizing successful athletic programs at big universities.
It's for the glory of sports. It's athletics. It's the worship. It's the money. But this has happened in other places, the Catholic Church. We've had the Boy Scouts. I think all of us need to take a step back and truly say, yeah, this can happen anywhere. Are we watching our house? And we were not watching the house here at Michigan State.
We've seen it at Penn State University. We've seen it at Baylor University. And now we're seeing the alleged mishandling of sexual violence at Michigan State University, a trend Gerstner fears could continue.
As a journalist, I know this is happening again. This is going to happen somewhere else again. It just will. But as an optimist, I hope we can learn something from this as a world and try to stop this before it ever happens again.
And this is just the beginning of my examination of the campus culture. Our investigation continues tomorrow night at 11. That's when you'll hear my interview with a former athletic director for MSU. And she is very blunt about how she thinks the university handles all Title IX investigations.
As 24-Hour News 8's Lindsay McConnell learned, Marilee Dean Baker believes the campus culture at State added to Nassar's ability to abuse athletes for years.
This is the most egregious case I've ever heard of or seen in this country.
Marilee Dean Baker has watched the Nassar case and continued fallout from her Florida home. Since leaving her post as MSU's athletic director in 1995, she served as an expert witness in Title IX litigation cases.
What is your reaction to seeing everything?
In my estimation, without equivocation, I think that Michigan State has been in violation of its compliance with Title IX. That anytime someone employed by a school is told about alleged sexual harassment or abuse or assault or violence, the employee's obligation, their legal mandate, is to report the information to a supervisor.
That is not what Michigan State's defense attorneys are arguing, though. They've filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit filed on behalf of several victims, claiming they did not report Nassar to the right people.
But given your expertise, it sounds like that's not an accurate...
No, that's absolutely a scapegoat.
What's your opinion on the 2014 Title IX, then?
I don't think their investigation was done properly. I don't think it was done completely. When a coach was told this by a student athlete, a gymnast, in 1997, why wasn't it stopped then?
Had I known that you were such close friends, I would have never told her. She put her friendship with you above all the concerns I had. She protected you over me, a child.
Because I do believe that there is a cultural problem at Michigan State University. I felt that 23 years ago. I've seen nothing to change that, and as I look at the unfolding of this particular series of events, I'm convinced that the problems are still there.
When Baker moved to East Lansing in 1992, she brought her years of teaching Title IX enforcement with her. Important experience that she said fell on deaf ears.
I would venture to guess that the words Title IX were barely ever heard after I left. That was just the attitude. I tried speaking to the Board of Trustees about it numerous times. I tried speaking to the president. There were just a lot of people in those positions that didn't want to hear about it.
The only trustee who sat on the board in the 90s and still remains is Vice Chairman Joel Ferguson, who Baker sees as the embodiment of the culture MSU must address, citing his comments on the radio last month.
There's so many more things going at the university than just this Nassar thing.
Do you really need to hear anything more about the cultural crisis at Michigan State University? Or the genesis of its core practices? It's just appalling that the institution is that tone deaf.
Will you pledge to commit to having a town hall within the next week, all trustees and yourself present? Secondly, will you pledge? No to that one. Okay. Wow.
When protection of the brand is more important than protection of its consumers, inevitably there will be a stain on the brand. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happened. What has happened at Michigan State.
We have learned that MSU has the same insurance company that stonewalled survivors of the Jerry Sandusky case and the horrible abuse that occurred at Penn State.
Tonight, 24-Hour News 8's Lindsay McConnell has the story of one woman hurt on MSU's campus who's battled that insurer for years.
Well, Sue and Brian, Elizabeth Ostendorf nearly died after being run over by a university truck on MSU's campus. And despite being awarded millions, she has yet to see a penny. And now some worry that that is what could happen to the Nassar survivors.
Do you try to stay pretty optimistic?
I try, but I fail too often.
You fail too often, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think you fail.
We can't do it.
Dr. Elizabeth Ostendorf now spends her days at a Lansing rehab facility. But just 3.5 years ago, she was conducting research for Michigan State University. Her boyfriend, now one of her caretakers.
It's kind of a complete 180 to what you've done before, where you're independent and now you're dependent. So I think that was the hardest part, right?
In October 2014, her life changed in a catastrophic way. A truck belonging to MSU, driven by a MSU student employee, ran over Elizabeth.
She sees him at the last minute and she tries to get out of the way. She moves to her right and he just continues to back and knocks her over, and she falls to the pavement, and then the rear wheels of the truck run over her head.
Doctors didn't think she would survive. And her attorney didn't think Michigan State would drag out her lawsuit as long as they have. Elizabeth is here on a visa from Germany. Because of that, MSU determined she's not eligible for workers' comp, but their insurance company, United Educators, argues she is. A judge awarded her $7.5 million last year, but she hasn't seen a penny because United Educators refuses to pay MSU's claim.
You talk about the old adage, adding insult to injury. This is a great personification of that. It's a horrible personification of it.
Because realistically, they could step up and pay it.
They absolutely could do that. They should do that. Michigan State's got to make a decision. What is the right thing to do, and do it. And if they are at odds with their insurance company, then fight it out with their insurance company.
Target 8 found United Educators has been in the news before, currently at odds with Penn State University. PSU settled with Jerry Sandusky's victims, only to have United Educators deny $42 million in claims. Because of that track record, we asked if United Educators would be the same insurer involved with the Nassar litigation. An email statement said, "It is not appropriate for us to speculate on any potential settlement." But interim President John Engler referenced the insurer while answering questions about the Nassar litigation earlier this month.
As Penn State found out, sometimes insurers don't pay. They're still trying to track theirs down. The one place that you don't go because it's restricted under law or endowment funds. That will not be how they're paid for. So it will be, students and taxpayers.
If it's all true, then United Educators becomes the common denominator in cases where students and members of university communities were victimized and had to fight tooth and nail for justice. That's wrong.
The grim reality, though, is that no amount of money can ever rewind the clock.
That was a trust fall.
Yeah.
You can't be angry all the time, right? Now it's more like frustration and being, in general, like worried about the future.
I think it's accepting that my life plan changed.
Accepting that your life plan changed?
Yeah.
For more than a year, people have questioned how Larry Nassar got away with abusing athletes for years at Michigan State University. All new on Daybreak, 24-hour News 8's Lindsay McConnell uncovered a potential answer to that question. She's live in studio control with that. Lindsay?
Casey, good morning. Through the Freedom of Information Act, we've received police interview videos from 2014 and 2016 showing Nassar defending himself to MSU investigators. In addition to justifying his actions by explaining they were medically necessary, he also acted dumbfounded and even blamed his accuser.
Very in tune to the person's body, okay? And that's what makes me the doctor that I am, okay? And so that's why I'm like, how the heck did I miss any signals?
This interview MSU PD conducted back in 2014 shows now convicted felon Larry Nassar. He was being questioned about accusations he assaulted a patient. Throughout the interview, which lasted nearly 2.5 hours, he deflected by asking why she didn't stop him.
I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication. Okay. And that's why I'm like, what? Am I blind? Am I deaf? Didn't I hear or see anything?
Nassar also spent nearly 25 minutes showing the detective videos of himself working with athletes, justifying his actions as medical techniques.
I lecture on not only here at Michigan State to the fellows and residents and medical students, but to national organizations, international. And to be able to do this stuff for so long, if you don't have patient confidence and patient trust, you would have had my in here how many times? Right. Okay, especially when I'm doing this on 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, okay, with their parents there. But I'm obviously doing a doggone good job explaining things, okay, because what?
Now, that's not all Nassar had to say. At one point in that interview, he got emotional and tried to explain that he was the victim in all of this. I'll have that in our next half hour of Daybreak. Plus, tonight at 5 and 6, you'll see the 2016 interview, which ultimately led to his arrest. Casey.
For months, we have worked to answer important questions about the Nassar scandal at Michigan State University. Some of those questions involve how the university is responding to the fallout.
New at 6 o'clock, 24-hour News 8's Lindsay McConnell is going one-on-one with interim President John Engler about his controversial role with moving the university forward. Lindsay?
Well, soon, Brian, we learned last month that despite calls for his resignation, former Governor Engler has no plans to leave MSU. And because of that, I felt it was important to get his take on things, but also question why he won't step down.
One of the ways justice can occur is by removing Engler from his current position at MSU.
With all the calls still for your resignation, why stay here?
Well, somebody's got to be here. I think one of the trustees actually said that, and there's only a little bit of time left. We'll have a new president pretty soon, and that president's going to be, I think, grateful when they walk in and find a lot of this stuff has been fixed. And frankly, people say, oh, this is so hard. What was hard was becoming governor in 1991. That was hard. Before you were born, before lots of people on this campus were even born, and those were tough, challenging, difficult periods.
Maybe the task of leading Michigan State University in a post-Nassar environment isn't something interim President Engler would equate to running the state of Michigan.
Our incoming class,
but it's one that he believes he is equipped for. There have been steps forward under his watch, including the $500 million settlement with Nassar survivors.
We had to make it right there, so it was important for that 330 plus cases. It was also important to bring certainty to the campus of what's happening, and there was a great unrest, uncertainty. Is this ever going to get behind us?
Some of that unrest continues, though, most recently with the announcement of Robert Kent as the interim head of the office that handles sexual assault complaints. Previously, he served as assistant general counsel for MSU, meaning he helped defend the university against the Nassar lawsuits.
Do you at all understand where the complaints are coming from, though, why people have those concerns that he's now heading up that office or acting as head of the office?
Well, they're not valid. I mean, no matter what we do, people complain. It's kind of interesting.
And so at the end of the day, you feel very confident that you're still the right person to lead the university?
Oh, I think there's, I'm not. The permanent president's the right person, and they'll be here soon.
The former president of Michigan State University faces prison time for her role in the Larry Nassar abuse scandal, but her attorneys say the charges won't hold up in court.
Today, a judge arraigned Luana K. Simon on 2 felony and 2 misdemeanor charges. She lied to investigators. 24-Hour News 8's Lindsay McConnell went to Eaton County for her arraignment.
Dr. Simon did not have much to say during today's arraignment other than that she understood the charges against her, but afterwards her attorneys did not mince words when it came to what they think about the Attorney General's allegations.
Dr. Simon is about as far from a criminal as anybody that I could think of, and it's ridiculous, in my opinion, that she is being treated like a common criminal.
Lee Silver and Mayor Morgan Roth are taking an aggressive approach to defending the former MSU president. She maintains she never knew MSU investigated Nassar prior to his firing in 2016. But the AG's office found evidence of a 2014 meeting Dr. Simon attended where a senior advisor went over the Title IX investigation he was the center of at the time. Her attorneys would not answer direct questions about that paper trail.
Okay, that evidence of? It's evidence of nothing.
It's
somebody
evidence
else's
of a
note
meeting that took place with
Somebody
with the
else's
president of the university.
Right. Somebody else.
Senior advisor.
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
Somebody else's note that's never even shown to anybody. Look, we're not going to get into the evidence because the evidence is false, ridiculous, and would even be stupid for any of you to even consider it. You'll find out, okay? Let's go.
Dr. Simon entered a not guilty plea, surrendered her passport, and was given a $5,000 personal recognizance bond. The next time we could see more evidence against Dr. Simon is for her preliminary exam. They have not set a date for that yet. Once the court does, we will pass that along. Reporting in Eaton County, Lindsay McConnell, 24-Hour News 8.